What's up, everybody? Benji Bruce here, and we are going to get to talking about the status quo and being the 1%. What do you got to do to be the 1%? So that's what I want to talk about today. Basically, I always say this. I say this all the time. You study the 1%, not the status quo. And that's what today's video is going to be about. That's what today's live is going to be about. So let's see who's hopping on real quick. I do want to stress the importance of literally studying the 1% and damn near ignoring the status quo, ignoring the average. It's insanely important that you operate from this standpoint, because when you do, you naturally accomplish what you want in a faster amount of time. It's just natural, because think about it. I mean, average people, just normal people in general, they're just doing normal things, so they're not really accomplishing what they want. Procrastinate too much. I mean, they're just not doing what it is they want. They have all these dreams, all these ambitions, but they're not accomplishing anything. So if you want to actually start accomplishing more, you got to start studying the 1%. Start studying the anomalies. Start studying the greats. And that's how you're going to actually get better and improve upon what it is you're doing. So let's see who's hopping on real quick. All right, let's see. All right, so we got some people hopping on. All right, so I want to start out with this quote from Sam Walton. Sam Walton, the guy who built Wal-Mart, and this is one of the first things he says in the book, in his book Made in America. He says this. He says, "I think my constant fiddling and meddling with the status quo may have been one of my biggest contributions to the later success of Wal-Mart." So I'll say that again. I think my constant fiddling and meddling with the status quo may have been one of my biggest contributions to the later success of Wal-Mart. I mean, Sam Walton knew it. Everybody knows it in terms of just being insanely successful. You can't look at normal people and do what they do and think how they think, because you're going to get what they get, which is nothing really. So you want to study the status quo, and it's more important to not only just study the status quo, but to hold back your judgments on studying the 1%ers. So you got to hold back your judgments when you're studying these insanely successful people. It doesn't matter if you agree with them, disagree with them. It just doesn't matter. You hold back your judgments on them, because that's the only way you're going to truly understand and truly step it up a notch. You want to assume that whatever level of thinking that you're at right now, it's not enough. And so if you want to accomplish more in your business, if you want to get better at marketing, if you want to just accomplish more in general, you have to assume that the way you're thinking right now, it's not getting you to where you want to be. So you got to step it up. And this is why you want to study the greats. I mean, Michael Jackson, I mean, he even said it. What did he say? He was like, I study the greats. Or no, he said, you want to study the greats so you can become greater. And I mean, all these people, they understood the concept. And when you study great people, you start to notice certain things about them. And it's really hard to notice this when it comes to great business people, because the billionaires like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, all these guys, they're really quiet. They don't really say what they think, because they know if they did, people would be terrified. This is why you get, who is it, like George Soros, and who is the other crazy dudes, like the Koch brothers, I think. Like these guys, they have crazy thoughts. I mean, freaking insane thoughts. And a lot of them, they tend to keep to themselves, because they know other people think that it's crazy. And I mean, even other billionaires think that it's crazy. And so when you have these crazy thoughts, you naturally want to keep it to yourself. But those crazy thoughts tend to allow you to do what you do. It allows you to become great. It allows you to get to where you want to be. And that's why you have to start studying the 1% instead of the status quo. So that's what we're really going to go over today. All right. What's up, everybody? Cool. So, like I said, in case you guys hopped on later, I'm going to say that quote again by Sam Walton, the guy who built Wal-Mart. He said, "I think my constant fiddling and meddling with the status quo may have been one of my biggest contributions to the later success of Wal-Mart." I mean, he understood you got to just destroy the status quo. I was watching a video on YouTube a long time ago, and I can't remember which billionaire said it, but he said something. He's like, "It's simple. Success is simple. Just don't do what the status quo does." And it was like, that's literally all he said. And so you just want to think in terms of, to be the 1%, you can't think and operate like the 99%. That's how you become better at what you do. That's how you become great at what you do, is you simply don't think and operate like the 99%. This is why, like, when you hear normal people say things like money doesn't bring you happiness, what's happening is they're translating it very differently than someone who's really wealthy. Someone who's really wealthy, they'll say that money doesn't bring you happiness. They mean it in a literal sense, as in, okay, if you're unhappy right now, when you have money, you're probably not going to be happy either. They mean it in a literal sense. Whereas when most people say it, they say it as a reason for why they don't have money. They say as an excuse for why they're not actually driven to generate revenue, right? And so it's very different. It's like watching a movie, right? You go to a movie, one person sees or two people see the same movie, one person hates it, another person loves it. The same goes with little sayings like money doesn't bring you happiness. When you hear that, someone who actually has money, they hear something very differently than what the 99%, the status quo, hears. And so you have to understand little things like that. I mean, normal people say little things that they say like little things in terms of like, oh, it's who you know, right? It's you got to make sure that you know the right people, instead of thinking in terms of, oh, I got to become the person that other people want to know. Little things like that truly matter, and that's why you really, really want to start paying really close attention to how insanely successful people think, not everyone else. And another one I wrote down is normal people tend to do things like they'll tell their kids or they'll tell other people like, hey, you're not better than anybody else. Like, you're not better than someone else. And if you look at someone who has accomplished something like Mike Tyson, right? Mike Tyson's trainer, what did Mike Tyson's trainer tell him? Mike Tyson's trainer freaking programmed that dude's mind like on a whole new level. He's like, dude, not only are you better than everyone else, when you step into that ring, I want you to kill the guy. I want you to hit him so hard that he dies. That's literally what Mike Tyson's trainer was actually telling him. And so you may not need to go to that extent, but you understand the difference between Mike Tyson's trainer versus a normal person would say, look, Mike, I mean, you're not better than everybody else. I mean, just understand. And it would have programmed his mind the wrong way. Same with someone like Michael Jordan, right? If Michael Jordan's dad would have said like, look, Mike, I mean, you're not better than everybody else. I mean, you just want to practice. I mean, you're not better. Instead, Mike Jordan's dad was like, dude, you're way better than everybody. Every single one of your friends, go destroy them. Like, you're way better than every single person that you played against. You're way better than them. And it programs your mind to operate in a certain way. And so you have to understand that if you want to be the 1%, you can't think and operate like the 99%. And that's why everyone keeps saying all you got to do is just look at what everyone else does and do the exact opposite. That's what you really have to do. Basically, normal people think normal thoughts. That's why they have a normal life. And if you look at successful people think crazy thoughts. That's why they have the life that other people dream of. If you think the way other people think, you will have what other people have. If you think crazy thoughts that you're literally afraid to actually tell people, if you think these crazy thoughts, you will literally have a life that other people dream about. And so I can't stress this enough in terms of studying the 1% and ignoring the 99%. Yes, you are better than other people. And when you think in terms of being better, I would say it's more about being different, right? Michael Jordan is better than you, better than me at basketball. An auto mechanic is better than Michael Jordan at fixing a car. You are better than someone at something. And you have to truly understand it. You have to truly believe it. Magnus Carlsen, #1 chess player in the world, he is better than you, better than everybody watching this in chess. Everybody. He is better than you, me, everybody. But he's not better at playing basketball, right? You are better at something. And you just have to truly get this through your head. And that's how you want to operate, because it just allows you to do certain things that other people won't be able to do. People are going to talk about you behind your back. When you understand that you want to be the 1%, it's inevitable, because the 99%, they have their own ways of thinking, their own ways of doing. And so if you want to be the 1%, you have to be okay with people talking behind your back. It's that whole saying of lions never lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. If you are the 1%, you don't lose sleep over the opinions of the 99%. You just don't, because it doesn't matter to you. They can think all they want. They can talk all they want. It doesn't matter to you. And you have to operate with that perspective. You have to be okay with being called nerdy, weird, crazy, whatever it is, right? I mean, it's like Bill Gates, right? Everyone called him a nerd when he was growing up, and what happened? Everyone worked for him, right? And I don't know if he said it or if someone just wrote it and just claimed it was him, but he says something like, you better be smart to nerds because eventually you're going to be working for them. And so it's one of those things where people keep talking and talking and talking. You got to be okay with them talking because in the long term, they're going to be the ones working for you. And so you truly want to study the 1% and be the 1% because that's how you're going to get to where you want to be. I remember a long time ago when I was just building the entertainment business, there was this forum for entertainers, right? And on the forum, there's all these entertainers and they're, to them, doing a $2,500 gig was amazing. I mean, it's like, holy crap, $2,500. Damn, that's a lot of money, right? Then I started talking with another friend of mine who was already a millionaire, and to him, $2,500, that was chump change. He's like, oh, that's all you're gonna do, $2,500? Why not 10,000? Why not 15,000? Right? It was just a different level of think, right? And so it's one of the reasons why I would look at somebody. Like before I just take advice from someone, I tend to look at them and I say, is that where I want to be? Right. And I did that with these entertainers on this forum. Right. I looked at these entertainers on this forum and I thought to myself, is there any entertainer on this forum, anyone that I want to be like when I turn 40 years old? Anybody there? The answer was no. And so I just ignored them. I stopped paying attention to them, stopped posting everything because to me, they were the 99%. They were the status quo. And so I literally ignored them. I looked at guys like David Copperfield, David Blaine and Penn and Teller and all these guys. And I said, okay, are any of these guys posting inside of a magic forum? No. And so I stopped posting. I completely ignored them. I looked at the 1%. I ignored what all these other entertainers were doing. I just looked at the 1%, right? All these other entertainers, I mean, their level of think was so small. It was horrible, right? I stopped talking to them, stopped posting everything. And you want to think along those lines. If you want to look at somebody and look at the momentum this person has, and you want to ask yourself, is that essentially where I want to be? Are these the type of people that I truly want to hang around? And that's what I always look at in terms of momentum. And that's what I really did with entertainers. I simply just looked at all these entertainers in the group. I said, I don't want to be like any of these guys. I mean, these guys have been doing this. So here's the funny part, right? So they would post about marketing and they would post about marketing advice. They're like, I've been doing this for 40 years. I mean, Benji, what is he saying? He's only been doing it for X number of years. I've been doing this for 40 years. I know way more than this guy. And I'm thinking, if you've been doing it that long, then why are you still only charging $2,000? Like, why aren't you even a millionaire yet if you've been doing it that long? And so to them, they were bragging as if the 40 years was a good thing. To me, that was a bad thing. I thought to myself, if you've been doing something that long and you haven't actually accomplished much, why would I pay attention to you? Why would I listen to you? And so you want to start thinking along those lines in terms of who you're actually paying attention to. What does their momentum look like? That's how you truly want to start thinking and start operating. You basically want to develop the level of think that allows you to accomplish your goals. That's what it really means to study the 1% and ignore the 99%, because every thought that you have is going to help you either accomplish your goals or not accomplish your goals. So you need to develop the level of think that allows you to accomplish those goals that you want. Great people have intense thoughts. That is why they have the life that people dream about. It allows them to become great by having these intense thoughts. If you have intense thoughts, you do not shy away from it. You move towards it. Because if you shy away from it, you're simply doing what most people do. And that's why you'll end up being normal. You'll end up being what other people are. And so you need to move towards those intense thoughts if you have them. Unless it's like a crazy ass thought where you want to kill somebody, then maybe you should tone that down a little bit. Don't be no Ted Bundy or something. But if you have intense thoughts about success, then you should move towards it. That's what's going to allow you to be way more successful. It's like, it's one of the reasons why I like studying athletes. It's much easier to see this with athletes than business people, because business people like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, and Warren Buffett, all these guys, they have intense thoughts, but they understand that if they let people see it, it would semi-affect the business. So they tone it down a lot. They end up doing the reverse. They go really quiet, and only their inner circle knows what their intense thoughts are. On the other hand, with athletes know that if they actually show people the intense thoughts, it actually helps them out. That's why I tend to study more athletes, right? And so that's why, like, if you look at someone like Kobe, I remember Kobe, I don't know if it was an interview or if it was like in the book where Kobe was like, I'm going to beat you so bad that I'm going to make you question your career choice. He's like, I'm going to destroy your game to the point where you're literally going to question whether or not you should have been a basketball player to begin with. And those are the intense thoughts that allowed him to be one of the greatest players of all time. If you don't think that way, if all you do, if you're just like, yeah, I'm going to go in and we're just going to play this game and we'll just see what happens, right? If you think like that, you will never become great. You won't be the 1%. The 1% thinks intense thoughts. That's why they are the 1%. The 1% goes in the ring and it's like Tiger Woods. He's like, look, man, to be honest, I don't even know why these people actually play because I'm the one who's going to get first place. I mean, I'm going to like destroy these dudes. Tiger Woods was a beast like in the beginning. People were terrified of him. I mean, dude was a freaking beast. If you read about him and you like study him, he was insanely quiet because he came in to the game to play to destroy you. He wasn't your friend. He wasn't there to say hi to you. None of that stuff. That dude came to destroy you. And it showed in what he was doing. He didn't have to say it. It showed. And a lot of the golfers, they'll tell you the same thing. Like Tiger Woods in his prime, people were scared of the dude. Like, and they were scared. It's like he was very intimidating at first. And then all stuff happened. Then he didn't become intimidating anymore. But still, he was really intimidating. Mike Tyson, same thing. I can't remember which boxer said it about him, but he was like, in all the years of boxers, with all the boxers that I faced, Mike Tyson was the only one who stepped into the ring. When I stepped into the ring with him, I thought he actually wanted to hurt me. And so Mike Tyson actually did want to hurt people too. Like when he stepped into the ring, he truly did try to freaking kill somebody because he was programmed that way. But that is why he was actually one of the best boxers of all time. That is why, I mean, he freaking knocked people out in 10 seconds. And so if you want to accomplish great things, you have to have these intense thoughts. You move towards these intense thoughts. You don't back away from them. You just want to assume that whatever thoughts you have are true. And if you were to say okay, I need money to start, then that is true for you. But if you were to say, you know what, I can actually figure out how to get money to start, then that is once again true for you. So people who say I need money to start, they kind of use it as an excuse to not start. It's like, I need money. Like, what the heck? I can't really do this personal brand thing. I can't really build my business because I don't have money, man. You assume that is true. It is true. I mean, you probably don't have the money if you say that, right? On the other hand, if you say, I don't have the money, but I can figure out how to get it, then it becomes true. Once again, it becomes true because you're going to figure out how to get the money. And so your thoughts are there not to determine whether or not it's real or not. It's there to determine what it actually does to you. This is why I always tell people, like, it's all about what your thoughts do to you. And your thoughts need to change based on what they do to you. This is why the whole thing of luck, right? You got lucky or whatever like that. It's why luck is one of the perfect examples. In the beginning, you can't afford to believe in luck. You just can't in the beginning of when you're growing anything. Like if you're growing a business, you can't afford to believe in luck. But when you become successful, you can't afford not to. In the beginning, you have to say, you know what? There's no such thing as luck. I create my own damn luck. Like, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to make this thing happen, right? I don't care who got lucky or whatever. I'm going to go make this thing happen, right? Oh, sure, this person got money from their parents. I'm going to go make my own damn luck. I'm going to go make my own damn money, right? And you're doing that in the beginning. You're programming your mind in the beginning because of what that thought does to you in terms of you not paying attention to luck. But when you become successful, when you start making money, when you start doing the thing that you set out to do, you have to now assume that luck is what got you there. That way you don't get complacent. And so when you become a millionaire, you're like, you know what? I just got lucky. If it wasn't for this one deal, then that wouldn't have happened. All this stuff wouldn't have happened. If it wasn't for this 1-2 people that I met, then none of this stuff would have happened. So when you become successful, you now believe in luck because once again, it shifts what it does to you. And so once again, in the beginning, you don't believe it. You're like, dude, I create my own damn luck. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to meet a ton of people. I'm going to sell. I'm going to do whatever I can, right? And you just have this natural urgency, this natural momentum that you're building. Then when you're successful, you believe in luck because you don't want to become complacent, because if you're complacent, you're going to get destroyed by everybody else. And so you have to change your thoughts based on what those thoughts do to you. This is why, if you look at Actually, Floyd Mayweather is a perfect example. Look at Floyd Mayweather in the beginning of his career and look at him now. In the beginning, Floyd Mayweather, everyone's like, this dude's cocky, this dude's arrogant, whatever. Some people say confidence or whatever. He's like, man, I'm going to whoop this dude. I'm going to kick his ass. Oh, I'm the greatest, right? And he was cocky as all hell. And that's what allowed Floyd to become Floyd. I mean, he was promoting the hell out of himself. I mean, he's hands down the number one boxing earner of all time. The dude made more money than every single boxer ever, right? And in the beginning, he was doing that. He believed that he truly was the greatest too. He still believes it. But in the beginning, notice how cocky, arrogant he was. And now notice how humble he is, right? And so now he's more humble. Each section, each portion did its own job. The beginning part where he was cocky and arrogant, it did its job of promoting the hell out of his fights, right? I mean, people were betting against him. Even they lost their money when they bet against him, but they were betting against him. He was cocky as all hell, arrogant, confident, whatever you want to say, but he was doing it for a reason. He was doing it to promote the fight. Now he's more humble, as people would say, even though he still believes all that stuff. Of course, he believes it because he actually is one of the best, one of the greatest, right? But now he's more humble. And the reason he's humble is because he's like, I don't really need to promote anymore. He's like, I'm on top. I don't need to promote at this point. Like I'm done. So now it's more of, what does the thought do to you? Muhammad Ali even said, like, I'm the greatest. He's like, I said I'm the greatest before I even believed it. And so you're simply thinking about, what do the thoughts do to you? And that's why if you study the 1% and not the 99, you'll see what their thoughts do to them. It's not about whether or not it's true. It's what the thought does. If you study physics in general, and I'm not talking about pseudoscience. These so-called motivational speakers who take quantum physics and turn it into pseudoscience is ridiculous. I mean, I can go off on a whole new tangent on that stuff. In fact, let me just say this real quick about these so-called pseudoscience guys who talk about quantum physics and the observer and all that stuff. Here's what they really mean in quantum physics, all right? It does not mean that you as a human being alters reality by observing it. That is not what that means. What the observer means is there's a little particle, okay? There's this particle thing. In order to observe something, light has to hit it. Light has to, like, in order to see something, light has to be there. And light is this tiny particle called a photon, right? Light hits this tiny particle and it moves it, right? It just moves the thing. And so that's what they mean by the observer affecting the quantum particle. That's what they mean by it. They do not mean that you as a human being changes it. What they mean is light changes it. So all these freaking pseudoscience freaking speakers bothers the hell out of me, right? Let me get back to the point. So here's the thing. I don't even know what point I was going to say, but it was going to be amazing. But basically, before I went off on that tangent, you got to think from the standpoint of reality is relative, right? There is no one reality. And this is what Einstein was talking about in terms of like time as well, in terms of the time is the whole space-time thing is relative, right? And so you just want to assume that reality is relative. And that's why everyone has different opinions of things, and it's just relative. And so if you were to see reality as it actually is, it would look weird as all hell. Your brain does this thing. Your brain basically projects reality. It's like light comes into your eyes, goes to the back of your dome, and then your brain like does this mumble jumble thing, and then it projects your reality out into the world with all your assumptions and everything, right? And so you have to think in terms of your thoughts are just everything you see is being projected, and it's more of who you are rather than what reality is. And if you understand that, then you use that to your advantage. You use the thoughts to your advantage because you do not see reality as it is. You see you. That's basically what you're seeing, right? And so when you think that, and when you start studying the 1% instead of the 99, what happens is you become more intense with how you think. And you should basically have thoughts that you're afraid to share. If you don't think thoughts that you're afraid to share, then you won't really accomplish what you want. Your thoughts should be so intense, so great that you're literally afraid to share it with other people because they'll be like, this dude needs to go to the loony bin. What the hell are you talking about, right? There's a huge correlation between extremely successful people and crazy people. Like an insane correlation. The only difference between Elon Musk and a crazy person in a loony bin is that Elon Musk can control how crazy he thinks. He can control what he says. Whereas the crazy person, they're just like, I'm Jesus, I'm God, I'm hallelujah, right? And they're just crazy. They don't really control it, right? Whereas Elon Musk, I guarantee you, Elon Musk and a lot of billionaires think they're damn near God. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you, but they won't say it, but they truly believe it. And that level of belief is actually what allows them to do what they do. But they will never say that, because if they said it, they'll get thrown in the loony bin. And if Elon Musk said something like that, he would instantly like get thrown off a Tesla and all that. They'd be like, this dude's crazy, motherfucker. What the hell? And so, like, I mean, people already call him crazy, let alone if he actually shared his real thoughts. And so you have to assume that, well, you have to think at a level where your thoughts are so crazy that you're literally afraid to share them because of what can possibly happen when you do. Your thoughts are not meant for other people. They're meant for you. They're meant for you to take specific actions. This is why I actually like what Felix Dennis said. Like, one of the thoughts that he had in his book, How to Get Rich. Felix Dennis, the guy who built Max Magazine, among other magazines, he said the vast majority of you are far too nice to ever be rich. That is not a thought that you would normally share with people. Like, it's just not. You don't tell people, like, you know what? You're too nice. You'll never make any money because you're too nice. Like, you don't really share that thought with people. He shared it because he was damn near a billionaire by the time he died. He just didn't care what people thought of him. So he's like, I'm going to share this in my book anyways, right? But that's not a thought that you would normally share with people. And you have to think thoughts like that in order to actually accomplish what you want. And by the way, what he meant with that, it wasn't just being mean to people. He didn't mean that. He was just like, most of you won't say no. Like, if someone wants to invite you to lunch, you're going to be like, oh yeah, sure. Even though it's going to waste your time. Like, most people won't say no, things like that. So that's what he meant by that saying. But you have to think thoughts that are almost crazy or even crazy, right? Most of your thoughts should be disagreeable with the status quo. If most of your thoughts aren't disagreeable with the 99%, you don't stand a chance being the 1%. That's how you have to think. That's how you have to operate. If you start thinking the same way as everybody else, you simply won't be where you want to be. And that's the state of mind that you have to operate in. All successful people, think about it like this. All successful people have been called arrogant by the status quo. I'll say that again. All successful people have been called arrogant by the status quo. How many times have you ever heard Elon Musk call Michael Jordan arrogant, or Michael Jordan call Tiger Woods arrogant, or Floyd Mayweather call Michael Jordan arrogant, or the opposite, right? You never hear it. Like, literally, I'll be damned if someone could actually post a video where one extremely successful person calls another extremely successful person arrogant. It just doesn't happen, right? When people get called arrogant, it's always by the status quo, or it's by a hater, right? It's by, like, let's say Mayweather and Mike Tyson hate each other. Then Mike Tyson may call Mayweather arrogant or something like that. He may do that if they don't like each other, but you'll never actually like see someone like Jordan call Mayweather arrogant. And the reason is because someone like Jordan identifies with someone like Mayweather. The status quo doesn't identify with Mayweather. The status quo can't understand Mayweather saying, I'm the greatest boxer of all time. Like, not even Muhammad Ali is on my status. When people hear that, they're like, this dude arrogant, no motherfucker. Whereas someone like Jordan, he's like, yeah, I get it. Like, he understands, he identifies with that level of thinking. That is why he is Michael Jordan. That is why he is where he is. And so that's why you don't hear successful people call another successful person arrogant, because they identify with that level of think. If you don't identify with that level of think, then you are the status quo, and you need to get out of that status quo as soon as possible. And so just understand that you basically need a level of confidence that borderlines on arrogance. If you don't have this level of confidence that borderlines on arrogance, then it's going to be really hard to get what you want. Self-belief comes from competence. It comes from you knowing what you're good at, what you suck at. It comes from competence. It comes from you doing something over and over and over again. And you're like, oh, I know I'm good at it because I've done it a million times. It's like Kobe Bryant, his last game, his last basketball game of his career, I don't know how many points he scored, like 60 or something like that. But someone asked him, they were like, oh, were you kind of like afraid, like, hey, this is the last game? I mean, maybe it's not going to work or something. Maybe I'm not going to score any points, whatever. He was like, nah, the last game is like any other game that I've done for years throughout my entire life. He's like, as soon as you start playing, it's just like any other game. And he said the same thing about like the game winner shots and stuff, right? So with game winner shots, people think like, oh, he's nervous. There's only 2 seconds left on the shot clock. And, this guy, I don't know. I mean, is he going to make, he must be nervous. All the pressure is on him. And Kobe's like, nah, there is no pressure. It's a shot, just like any other shot. And he says that because the self-belief, it comes through competence. He's like, I've taken this shot 1,000,000 times. Why would I be afraid to take this one shot? It doesn't matter if there's 2 seconds or if there's 20 minutes left on the shot clock. I've taken this shot 1,000,000 times. And so that's where self-belief comes from. You got to operate with an understanding that when you have massive self-belief, people will call you arrogant, but the people who will call you arrogant are the status quo. And remember, lions don't lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. And so if the status quo calls you arrogant, so what? It doesn't matter, right? And so just understand that your crazy thoughts are meant for you. They're not meant for other people. The crazy thoughts, the more crazier they are, the more you want to keep it to yourself. I mean, if you got some really crazy thoughts, you better keep it to yourself. Remember, every thought that you have is meant to produce an action. It's not meant to express your opinion. This is why look at a lot of successful people and look at a lot of average normal people. Average normal people express their opinions all the time. They're just like, oh, I don't really think that's right, blah, blah, blah. They express their opinions all the time. If you look at successful people, they think thoughts and they're really quiet about the thoughts they think, and then they just do something. If they express their opinion, it's for a reason to express the opinion. Usually it's probably because they're getting interviewed or something like that, but you want to just look at little things like that. Like average people tend to express their opinions all the time. They're just like, oh, you know what? I don't think this should happen. I think the president, all this. They express their opinions all the time. And so if you look at someone like Zuckerberg or something, right? Zuckerberg doesn't like Trump. But here's the difference between Zuckerberg not liking Trump and normal people not liking Trump. Normal people who don't like Trump, they go on Facebook and they complain. They go on Twitter. They're like, oh, Trump did this, Trump did that, whatever. Zuckerberg, he doesn't say any of that stuff. Like, he doesn't do any of that. Zuckerberg's like, you know what? Let's see how we can destroy Trump real quick. Let's see what we can do. Can we delete his Facebook page? Let's see if he violated any of our terms. Like, that's what Zuckerberg's doing. Zuckerberg's using his thoughts to produce action. He doesn't care about he has opinions, but he knows what those opinions are. He doesn't need to express those opinions to other people. He uses his thoughts to produce action. That's the difference, right? And so it's in terms of keeping your thoughts to yourself, it's like if you're getting interviewed, right? Let's say you're going to a job, you're getting interviewed, and the interviewer says, well, where do you think you're going to be in 3 years from now? If you think to yourself like, oh, I'm going to have your job in 3 years from now, that's a thought that you keep to yourself. You don't say that to the interviewer. You don't say like, oh, where am I going to be in 3 years from now? Oh, I'm going to have your job. The CEO? No, I'm gonna take your job in 3 years from now. You don't say something like that. You keep that to yourself, right? And you keep it to yourself. You use it as fuel to actually get his job. There's no reason to say it, because when you do say it, it's almost like you're playing a game and you're revealing your hand to other people. And by doing that, they now can respond in a particular way to actually not allow you to get that job or to not allow you to do the thing that you want to do. That's why the more successful people tend to be, the more they tend to keep their thoughts to themselves. What you're really doing is you want to essentially shut out all the noise that gets you nowhere. Shut out all the thinking that gets you nowhere. It's like, I think it was Bruce Lee who said it, to where he's like, basically you take what you want, you take what you need, and then you kind of get rid of everything else. And so that's what you're doing. You're taking what's useful and then you get rid of everything else. I think that's what he said. Take what's useful and get rid of what you don't need. And so not all advice is useful to you. This is like when people say things like, oh, his family gave him money, right? So it's like, oh, his family gave him money. That's how he started his business. Maybe it is true, but so what? it's not useful to you. It's like when people talk about Trump to me, they're like, oh yeah, but Trump, I mean, his dad gave him like $1 million, $2 million to start his business. I mean, that's why the dude has so much money right now. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care if his dad gave him $10 million. I don't care if his dad gave him $100 million. He did something right to keep the money. So it's like you want to think in terms of along the lines of what thoughts are useful to you and what advice is useful to you. Advice like the money advice in terms of, oh, his parents gave him money or he wasn't a rags to riches story. I actually saw this on Quora, on the website Quora the other day. Someone said like, oh, Warren Buffett, Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and I think Jeff Bezos too. They were like, oh, they're not a rags to riches story. They didn't start out as broke. Their family had money and all that. They're not rags to riches. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, so what? Who cares? I don't care if they're rags to riches. That doesn't mean I can't learn something from them, right? And so you want to think along the lines of what's useful to you. And then if it's not useful, get rid of it. If it is, keep it. You don't want to, once again, you don't want to operate like normal people. You don't want to operate like average people. When you start doing this, what's going to naturally happen is people will talk about you and you got to ignore it. Because once again, the whole saying of lions don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. And so operate with that perspective. It's really important that you start reading biographies. I wish I would have read more biographies back in the day. If in terms of like reading material, that's the one thing I wish I would have read more of. When you read biographies, you start to see both sides of the equation. You see both sides of the coin. You see what the 1%ers really do and how they really think and what got them to the level they are. Whereas if you start reading just like regular motivational books, regular motivational books are accepted by the average. That's why they're extremely motivational to people, right? And so I'm sitting here, I'm looking at a lot of people who read a lot of the motivational books. And I mean, I used to read a lot of them as well. And I thought to myself like, I mean, here's a person who recommended this book or they like this book or I'd recommend a book to them and they'd be like, oh yeah, it's a great book and everything. And I would think like, wow, how come this person isn't really all that successful though? And I would think that like all the time, like, this person read like the same books that I did, but they're not really all that successful. And I thought it's because in order for a motivational book to be like a bestseller and all that, it has to appeal to the masses. And what is the masses? The masses are the 99%. That's the average. And that's why you don't see billionaires recommending these motivational books that everybody else recommends. Because when billionaires, when they think along the lines of like insane thoughts that motivational books don't actually talk about. So this is why you want to start reading biographies so you can actually see what's actually happening, like study the athletes what in terms of what I mentioned before, because it's just really hard to see how billionaires think and how business people think because they keep it all close to the vest, whereas athletes, they don't actually mind showing it and saying it. They don't really mind doing it at times. And so you really want to study athletes as well. And so basically what you're trying to do is you want to study all angles of successful people. The good, the bad, the ugly, study all angles. And I can't stress this enough. Keep your judgments to yourself. I don't care if you like something, if you like someone, if you hate it, if you disagree with them. I don't care. Keep your stupid judgments to yourself. Your thoughts, you got to assume that your thoughts right now are the 99%. They are the average thoughts. That is why when you see someone extremely successful do something that you don't agree with, that is why your brain has been programmed to say, oh no, that person's a bad person. Oh no, that's horrible, whatever. You have this judgment of this person you're studying because you see the bad aspects of this person's life, right? And so instead, what you need to do, you just pay close attention. You just get all the information. That's all you do. You're gathering information about extremely successful people. That's what you're doing. If you have these judgments, especially if you are actually talking to a successful person right there and then, like in person, if you're talking to a successful person and they sense any judgment from you whatsoever, they will shut down instantly. And you won't even notice it, by the way. You won't notice that they are holding back. I've done this several times with people, and it's not even just with judgments. It's also when I know that they're not paying attention to what I'm saying. So it's like when I say, oh, you got to do this, and they're like, oh, no, I don't really agree with that, right? It's like when I was doing the phone calls, and I told the guy, I was like, oh, yeah, look at this guy's website, right? This speaker's website. great website. This guy, you got to basically do something like his. And then the guy I was talking to, he was like, I don't really see how his website is all that great. I'm pretty sure, like, mine is better. I mean, mine's pretty good. His website was so bad. I thought we were looking at two different things. Like, it was so obvious that his website was bad. I literally thought, I was like, huh? And I actually asked him, I was like, wait, am I on the right link to your website? I mean, what was your website again? Like, that's how bad his website was. And he said his website was better than this guy who is charging $20,000. His schedule is completely booked. And I'm thinking to myself, what? And as soon as he said that, and as soon as he started basically saying, like, kind of, I was wrong, and I'm thinking to myself, dude, I've been doing this my entire life. Like, how many stages have you gotten on? Exactly, right? At that point, I just shut down. I was like, okay, you know what? Do what you do. Do what you want to do. Fine. Keep doing what you do. If you start judging extremely successful people, whether you agree or disagree, they will shut down. You will no longer get any of their advice ever. Here's how you know an extremely successful person has shut down on you. They will start answering you with one-word comments and stuff. They'll go from expanding on their ideas to all of a sudden giving you just quick, short answers. It's like it's almost like you can see it too. Like, you're like, oh, so what do you think of this? They'll just be like, oh, it's good. Yeah. That's literally what will happen. And so that's why when you study successful people, when you're around successful people, shut up. Just shut up and listen. That's all you do. You want to pay attention to the interviews, by the way. So if you're looking at business people, look at the interviews and also understand that there are things that people aren't revealing, that what you see is like, remember, like an iceberg. It's like the tip of the iceberg. Everything else below that is what you're truly looking for. The tip of the iceberg is the interview. The tip of the iceberg is the one little thing that you see, the one thing that they're saying, but you need to pay attention to everything else. This is why, remember how I said, like, successful people identify with other people. This is why you won't see Michael Jordan call Floyd Mayweather arrogant, but you will see someone who's average call Floyd Mayweather arrogant, because Michael Jordan identifies with Mayweather in terms of that level of thinking. This is why when Elon Musk, when he said that 420 tweet, in case you don't know, the 420 tweet, I can't remember the exact words, but basically he got in trouble with the SEC, right? He tweeted something, it manipulated the price stock of Tesla, and then he got in trouble, right? And when he tweeted it, I didn't pay attention to it at all when he first tweeted it. Then all of a sudden I see his article of, oh, Elon Musk may have lied about the 420 tweet. And I thought to myself, like, when me and my mom had a conversation, I was like, Mom, I guarantee he lied. 100%, I guarantee he lied. Before they even knew it, I knew he lied about it because I identified with it. And what I identified with is the fact that when you feel like the world is going against you, your natural instinct is to do whatever you can to basically just punch the hell out of the world. So what was happening with Elon Musk is all these short sellers were just doing short sales on his stock. And he feels like the world is going against him, all these short sellers and stuff. And so when he could, I mean, he had the opportunity to tweet, and then he tweeted, it increased the stock and it destroyed the short sellers. It basically just hurt him really bad, right? And I thought, like, a flat out lie would do that. Like, he just lied about it, and then bam, it hurt the short sellers. And he did that because he felt like all these short sellers were ganging up against him. And I was like, oh, I felt this. I had the same feeling before, right? When you feel like everybody's ganging up against you, or even, like, let's say you're not selling products or you're not getting on stages, you're thinking like, what the, right? You're like, oh, what the hell? So you just lie. You're just like, all right, to hell with it. I'm just going to lie. And then bam, your sales increase, or bam, this thing happens. That's why I told my mom from the get-go. I was like, guarantee he lied about it, because I instantly identified with him. What you're doing when you're paying attention to successful people is you want to empathize with them as much as possible. This is where the whole judgment thing comes into play, where you're not judging them, you're empathizing with them. You're trying to feel what they feel, understand what they understand, and that's what you're really doing. So basically, to be the 1%, you don't study the status quo. To be the 1%, you study the 1% and ignore the status quo. Whether they talk about you, no matter what they're doing, it doesn't matter. You ignore them. And the best book that I can recommend on this is The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. If you haven't read that book, it's a great book. Basically, the guy Howard Rourke, he's the 1%. Everybody else is a status quo, right? And so that's how you really want to be in terms of everything. So yeah, in order to be the 1%, study the 1%. If you want to be the 1%, you can't study the status quo. So let's see what are some things here. All right, let's see to do. See, hey Benji, finest photos, admires your advice. Same thing, it's not. All right, cool. All right, let's see. It's tunnel vision. Yep, exactly. See, Craig Alack. Let's see. Let's see. I've never had a problem with confidence in my abilities. Let me do this. I've never had a problem with confidence in my abilities. I know what I want. Cool. Let's see who else. If you mean that I'm always learning, stretching myself, sharing, willing. All right. Let's see if there's any questions here. All right. All right, guys. So I think we are good to go for today. Yeah, we're good to go for today. So we won't be doing the Facebook Live next week because I'm actually going to focus just on the people inside the program in terms of helping them with building the websites and everything. So we won't be doing it next week. But the week after, remember, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, we are doing these Facebook Lives. So if you guys have any questions, if you guys want some Friday fire, some motivational Mondays from technical Tuesdays, I'm just making these names up. But if you guys want to watch these Facebook Lives Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, with the exception of next week, because I'm going to focus on everybody inside the program next week. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. Take care. Have a nice day. Adios. Remember to be the 1%. Do not study the status quo. To be the 1%, ignore the average. Ignore status quo. That's how you become the 1%. Take care, everybody.